So I've had this news release in the past day or so, and that is that Chris Eubank Jr. will be teaming up with Brian McIntyre, aka Bomac, who's of course the trainer of Terence Crawford. These two will be pairing up in preparation for Eubank Jr.'s fight, his rematch against Liam Smith, taking place on the 2nd of September. I figured I'd just give my 2 cents on this because I find this to be an interesting development, and actually think this fight is quite interesting in and of itself as well, because this is going to be, should the fight go ahead, hopefully it does because it's been postponed quite a few times already, but this fight will give us a good insight into what is Eubank Jr. like as a fighter, because I don't know about you guys, but Eubank Jr. in my eyes still has a lot of question marks surrounding him. He's a fighter who hasn't really achieved all that much, despite the fact he's been a pro for the best part of 12 years. And he's reaching a relatively advanced age by boxing standards at 33. But he hasn't done anything. And yeah, he's had some good wins here and there, but there's I feel like there's an air of still wanting something, still having those questions that Eubank Jr. has to answer. And this is going to be a very unique and very high pressure situation for him because he's going in against the guy, Liam Smith, for a second time, knowing that Liam Smith has absolutely the ability to completely starch him, just like he did in the first fight. And it is situations like this where you really find out what a fighter's made out of. So don't get me wrong, I tip my hat to Eubank Jr. for taking this fight and being willing to go back in the ring with Liam Smith again. But looking at it objectively, it's there's some ambiguity surrounding whether Eubank Jr. is going to be able to sink or swim in that rematch. But then, of course, we have this development regarding Eubank Jr. going from working with Roy Jones over to working with Bomac. And of course, there's, I want to say, fanfare around Brian McIntyre right now because, of course, his main man, his magnum opus, if you will, and Terence Crawford enjoyed the biggest win, and it really was a historic victory over Errol Spence on the weekend. There's a lot of fanfare surrounding him, as I say. It's kind of, they're in the spotlight right now. They're the top dogs. They're the guys in boxing, the face of boxing, if you will, having their 15 minutes of fame, and rightfully so. But does that necessarily translate to success for Eubank Jr. in this pairing? Personally, I could see ways it could, and I could see ways it couldn't. I guess it's always good that Eubank Jr. has someone who's experienced, who's knowledgeable, because let's be real, Brian McIntyre, I think he's proved his quality as a coach. He's a very experienced coach, very knowledgeable, seems to have a real good boxing brain, which is something that's always going to be beneficial to some degree. However, I guess you could say the limitations are that, firstly, I guess the real kind of elephant in the room is the fact that the fight is less than a month away. It's currently, at the time of recording this video, the 3rd of August, and the fight's taking place on the 2nd of September. And now, going back to Eubank Jr., been a pro for 12 years, 33 years old. Even if Bomac had a year, forget 1 month, but even if he had a year, I don't think he's going to be able to make massive differences in Chris Eubank Jr.'s style and his approach to boxing. And look, maybe he doesn't have to have this massive transformative process, but there's a certain gelling that needs to happen between a trainer and a fighter. And I just don't think a month is enough. Maybe they turn out to be the perfect pairing, and I've got egg on my face come the evening of September the 2nd. But for the most part, trainers need time to gel with a trainer, regardless of the caliber of each of them. And I just don't think they have time on their side. Additionally, of course, in conjunction with that, the advanced stage of his career that Eubank Jr. is in, generally it's harder to teach experienced fighters new things and add to their skill set because they're so used to doing what they've done in the past. There was a very strange transition period that Eubank Jr. was going through with Roy Jones Jr., whereby it just looked a bit disjointed what Eubank Jr. was trying to do, and there was a mixed reception to how people thought his relationship and the goods that were being produced by himself in partnership with Roy Jones Jr. That being said, as well, looking at Eubank Jr. as a fighter and a personality, historically he's been someone who's notoriously quite difficult to deal with. He seems to be someone who, at least in my opinion as an outsider looking in, he's obviously very aloof, and I don't know, he has like this air of superiority, like he believes he's better than you. And he's only really willing to work with you and listen to you if he deems you to be of a higher level than himself. If he sees you as being below himself in terms of success or professionalism, whatever it may be, he's not willing to listen to you. However, we really saw this, in the years gone by. He was almost refusing to listen to his dad, refusing to listen to Ronnie Davies and other trainers. And it just had this sense of he felt he knew better than them, and he was going to try and feel his way through. He was going to train himself. He was going to follow his own instructions. And we saw it didn't really serve him all that well. But even then, if he goes to someone and he works with someone who he deems to be better than him in whatever sense, the way I look at it is you have to learn how to learn, if that makes sense. Because learning, a lot of the time when someone's teaching you, it's obviously it's an exchange. I can barely speak. It's an exchange of ideas, and you take on their guidance and their information, but you also have to be able to use it in conjunction with your own knowledge and your own experience, and they have to respect that. However, I question, does Eubank Jr. know how to be a student? Does he know how to study? Does he know how to take on information from someone who potentially knows better than himself and use it? Because that's something that I feel like you really need to get a lot of practice in. Like, there are certain people, certain fighters in years gone by who they were known for being students of the game, and that really played a big part in their success because they were able to keep an open mind. They had determination and steely resolve when necessary, but when it came to learning their craft, they were like sponges. They took in the information, they processed it. They, as Bruce Lee said, I can't remember the quote exactly, but you take in everything, you keep what is useful, you discard what is useless, and you add what's uniquely your own. Can Eubank Jr. do that? Because without a shadow of a doubt, as I've said, Bomac is a very experienced and knowledgeable coach. But does Eubank Jr. know how to learn? Has he learned how to learn over the years? I guess it'll all be made clear. We'll find out in just under a month. But, ultimately the proof is in the pudding. I'm just going to throw my 2 cents out there and, if anything, presenting a question to you. So, that being said, what do you guys think about this? Do you think Bomac can be the right addition for Eubank Jr., take him to the next level, help him to right that wrong and beat Liam Smith in the rematch? Are you, like me, kind of on the fence and maybe just seeing how the relationship goes along until fight night? Or are you kind of set in your ways, you're nailing your colours to the mast and saying, you know what, it doesn't matter who trains Eubank Jr., he's going to get starched anyway, it's going to be repeat? Leave it down below. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. And for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.